Looks like we're ready to go here on a Wednesday morning. This is Up North News Radio. I'm Pat Kreitlow up here on Lake Wissota on this Wednesday, August 30th. Nice to have you along. The radio show will get started at 6:06 after some news and commercials. We'll talk about Hurricane Idalia, which is threatening the Florida coast. We'll talk about our own forecast, which is going to get good and hot for the weekend. We have plenty of state headlines to cover, including Republicans unveiling a new tax plan, which it isn't skewed entirely toward the super wealthy, just toward the really wealthy. So, we got that going for us. We'll probably talk to Melissa Kay from Locally Grown Radio later in our first hour. We'll talk to Todd Alba in our second hour, and our guest at 7:30 is Julie Lassa, my former state Senate colleague, who now is the state director for rural development for the USDA, and all of the many infrastructure and other projects that the USDA works on in rural areas all across Wisconsin. So all that and more coming up. If you're watching this on video playback later, we'll get the show started in about 4.5 minutes. We'll see you soon.
I can't remember who it was I was talking to about like recurring guests recently, and one of them I mentioned Dr. Lyerly, and we're like, "Yep, she's on As Goes Wisconsin every week," and they're like, "Yeah, and she's on Up North News Radio every week," and I was like, "She's on Up North News Radio whenever she wants to be. It's always more than one a week."
Yes, it's twice for sure, and then occasionally helping out somebody. I got gaps. Help me fill the gap.
Favorite pair in need of new lenses? Buy one and relens your favorite. Stop by Ula Eyewear in the Hilldale Shopping Center and seize this offer before it's gone. See clearly, save clearly. At Ula Eyewear, Madison's premier eyewear shopping destination. Exclusions apply.
It's back to school time, but before we ring the bell for class, how about this subject? The first kindergarten started in Wisconsin. Marguerite Schurz created America's first kindergarten in 1856, teaching a small class at her family's home in Watertown, about 50 miles west-northwest of Milwaukee. Schurz learned about kindergarten in Germany, where the idea was common. It wasn't in America, and her class grew so quickly she had to move to a bigger space. Today, the building remains as a Watertown museum. For Civic Media, I'm Terry Bond.
My name is Teresa Barber. I was in the United States Navy, and I served overseas in the Middle East and Africa. Early on in my career, I had a commander that taught our suicide prevention training, and the very next day, he took his own life. 90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. My way of continuing my service is to help protect my community by being a responsible gun owner and by storing firearms safely. Store all your guns securely. Stop suicide.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
For over a century, AM radio has evolved to meet the needs of our community. More than 80 million listeners depend on AM radio each month. It's also the backbone of the emergency alert system, keeping us safe in dangerous times. A new bill in Congress would ensure this free, reliable service remains in cars. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to support the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to STOP.
This message furnished by the National Association.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Well, hey there, Wisconsin. Good morning. It's Wednesday, August 30th, and it's another beautiful day to have you here up north from wherever you're listening across the Civic Media Radio Network. You might also be joining us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, maybe by podcast, maybe on the Civic Media app, however you join us. It's great to have you here in the state of Wisconsin, where we're going to unpack the news, have a guest or two for you along the way as well, give you a Brewers update and a weather update. Going to be a hot Labor Day weekend, but it's not hot yet. We'll go over temperatures and forecast highs in just a little bit. Coming up on tap this morning, we start with the return of the clown car. We already knew Republican legislators were going to spend Tuesday in a committee hearing talking about an imaginary nomination to the State Elections Commission. We knew that much. So imagine our surprise when the committee also busted out its greatest hits, the album of imaginary claims about the 2020 election with live performances from many of the conspiracy theorists you thought had returned to the Mar-a-Lago swamp country. But apparently the hurricane has pushed them out of Florida, and they wound up back in the Wisconsin state capitol, bringing their special notion of crazy to relitigate a 2020 election that is nearly 3 years old. But man, they just will not let go of that bone. So we'll talk about that this hour. We'll also talk about more things that government is doing right. I know that sounds odd in this day and age, but part of our mission at Up North News is to overcome the default level of cynicism about civics and show what happens when government at any level is operated by people who care, by public servants who make good use of our tax dollars. For example, yesterday, we listed the many positive advancements in the care of our veterans. Now, today, we're going to look at the rural development arm of the US Agriculture Department here in Wisconsin, as State Director Julie Lassa outlines some of the recent hometown projects ranging from broadband to rural health care, clean water, job training, affordable housing. There are things that go right every single day thanks to people who care and who use our tax dollars wisely, and we think you should hear about those things a little more often. So we're going to talk about that with Julie coming up in our next hour. We'll talk to Melissa Kay from Homegrown Radio. We'll talk to Todd Allbaugh from the Todd Allbaugh Show. We'll get that full weatherology forecast from meteorologist Jennifer Vucicki, and of course, your phone calls as well. Always welcome, 844-967-2789, or email us, radio@upnorthnewswi.com. Or if you're watching on one of the Facebook pages where we put up this radio show as a live video feed, well, just put a comment right there. We may see it, and we may put it up on screen as well. As I mentioned before, we did a special back-to-school edition of our daily newsletter. A lot of times our daily newsletter is featuring some of the positive, upbeat stories around Wisconsin, what makes this such a great state to live in. We do more of the news and politics here on the radio show. But we thought for the first day of school, we would have a special edition of the newsletter that looks at some of those newsy stories, the things with a bit of a political bent, like about shortages in the district, where your state tax dollars are going for our schools. There is also a feature in there about alumni who come back to their hometowns to teach. And we really appreciate all of the great feedback that we're getting on the newsletter. A lot of people taking time to reply and send us their thoughts. And so if you're not a subscriber right now, you can still see that special edition of the newsletter. Just go to our website, UpNorthNewsWI.com, and right there on the home page, first you'll see that the top story on the website is that particular feature. It says district alumni returned to the head of the class in Wisconsin. That's the full version of Selena's story. But if you scroll down just a little bit more, you'll see a note that says special edition of our newsletter for back to school. Click there and it'll take you right to the full edition of the newsletter that we sent out the other day that you can read and click through some of the stories there as well. I should put in that shameless plug for merchandise because we got that as soon as I figure out how the buttons work here on my computer to bring up the pictures for the video audience. There you go. We've got various shirts and tote bags that, and I mean, having been at the Minnesota State Fair, a couple of days back where, you can buy all manner of t-shirts and there's all kinds of tote bags and things. So we're very much in a merchandise frame of mind here right now. So again, go to UpNorthNewsWI.com, click on store in the top banner, and that's where you'll find various t-shirts and things that you can purchase. Something that eventually is going to make it onto the exoskeleton of one Aaron Zommers over here, who's manning things down in the Madison studio. Good morning to you, Mr. Zommers.
Good morning, Mr. Kreitlow.
I was saying it's a little still, we talk about it, it's going to be hot this weekend, but it's not hot yet. Still pretty cool.
Well, today I walked out and it was a little chilly on the way to my car. Weird.
I know. I've got my usual summer flip-flops on, and my piggies are a little chilly this morning right now. I should have went with the slippers instead, maybe.
Might have to pack those dogs away.
I think so. But again, we're plenty of time for the pumpkin spice latte. We will get there. But right now, as I talk about the weather being a little cooler than we might be used to, I'm just here to say it's not a hurricane, right? We got that going for us.
At least we have that in Wisconsin.
What's happening there with Idalia? It's going to crush into the Gulf Coast near the Florida Panhandle. And it's going to bring some terrible conditions there. And it strengthened overnight to a Category 4, to a 4 overnight. That was not in the original forecast. It's almost as if there's something going on with the climate. But we'll save that for another time. Take this break here, and we will unpack the news here at the Wisconsin level coming up next, wherever you are listening across the Badger State on this fine Wednesday morning. When you're here with us every weekday morning, you're up north. We'll be right back.
Home brewing. From beer kits to winemaking supplies, they have everything you need to craft your perfect drink, even kombucha. Log on to wineandhop.com today or stop by at 1919 Monroe Street in Madison.
The key slides into the ignition. The engine rumbles to life. My hand grips the throttle. New gear for my ride. The road, my invitation. The sound, the smell, the exhilaration. I am one with the bike, and the car in front of me suddenly turns in my lane. Motorcycles are everywhere, but too often go unnoticed. Please, always look twice, be alert, and share the road with motorcycles at all times. Sponsored by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation.
Weather in a Moment is brought to you by Chad's Design Build, building a better world one remodeled home at a time. Reach out today by going to chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more. Again, that's chadsdesignbuild.com.
People won't give you the real talk on drugs, but it's time we know the facts. Fentanyl is killing people. It's a powerful opioid, often made illegally and commonly mixed with illicit drugs. It can even be pressed into counterfeit pills that resemble prescription medications. Just 2 milligrams, about the size of a few grains of sand, can potentially be lethal. This isn't an ad to scare you, but it is an ad to make you think twice. Get the facts. Go to realdealonfentanyl.com. This message is brought to you by the Ad Council.
The Maggie Dawn Show.
I would be remiss if I didn't say that some of what we do in government always is political. It has policy impacts. It has political impacts. But if your raison d'etre and your organizing principle is that my guy...
It was on this day in 1993 that Billy Joel was the very first musical guest on the return of David Letterman, bringing his late show to CBS. His first show on CBS included Billy Joel playing No Man's Land from The River of Dreams. We'll have more musical and historical notes coming up in our history lesson a little bit later on this hour. As far as our 6 a.m. temps go around the state here in Lake Wissota, it is 50 degrees right now on our way to a high of 73. It's also 50 on the way to 73 in Madison. Waukesha coming in at 46 this morning. Going to be a high of 69. La Crosse, you're at 57 on your way to 76. And Wausau, 47 en route to a high of 73 degrees. A lot of people up to 10 degrees cooler than yesterday. But compare that with what's coming up this weekend. I said that in La Crosse, for example, right now it's 57 on the way to 76. The forecast highs for La Crosse on Saturday and Sunday are 94 and 98. It's going to be that kind of a Labor Day weekend. Folks listening on Lake Air in Amory, it's 54 degrees right now, a chilly 46 in Wisconsin Rapids, and Hayward, you are coming in at 42 degrees as we get going at just about 6:17 on this Wednesday morning. Brewer starter Corbin Burns did almost everything right, but it was not enough as the Brewers' bats again went silent, and the Cubs broke the Brewers' 9-game winning streak in a 1-0 victory at Wrigley Field last night for the Cubs over the Brewers. It's not that the Brewers weren't making contact, but the wind was blowing in, and several very well-hit balls just couldn't get out, and so multiple times throughout the game, the Brewers had 2 runners on base with only 1 out, but just couldn't score any of them. And the only Cubs run came because Corbin Burns hit a batter who eventually came around and scored on a single. So again, 1-0 Cubs. The Brewers' winning streak ends at 9. They're still up by 4 games in the Central Division over the Cubs. The finale is this afternoon, and then they come home for a series at American Family Field with the Philadelphia Phillies. You can hear this afternoon's game on Civic Media Station Oshkosh Air Support in the Fox Valley and News from the Center in Richland Center. And don't forget, and we'll get into more detail about this tomorrow and Friday, but your Civic Media hometown station is going to be your home for high school football and also for Wisconsin Badgers football on many stations across the Civic Media radio network. And this would be a really good time. Don't wait till game day. This would be a really good time to download that Civic Media app. Go to civicmedia.us for details, or go to your particular app store and get the Civic Media app, because not only can you pick any Civic Media radio station around Wisconsin and listen to it live, but you'll be able to hear Wisconsin Badger football anywhere on the app. You're not restricted geographically that way. And in terms of high school sports, there are times some of the stations on the app have multiple streams because they may be broadcasting multiple games on a Friday night. You look on the app and it'll say on air, and then it'll say like Sports 2 and Sports 3. And so you'll have all of these weekend high school and college football sports right there in the palm of your hand on the Civic Media app. You can pick one that's a favorite radio station, and that's the one that'll always come up first, but you can listen to any of them, and you can learn more about the shows and when they're on. And as we've mentioned before, every one of these Civic Media shows becomes a podcast as well, so you can go to Apple, Spotify, wherever you go, and subscribe to our shows that way. We'd love to have you along. All right, let's unpack the news. You can react to these stories. You can vent a little about them. You can share what else is on your mind. Phone lines are open, 844-967-2789. And we're going to take a little extra time with them today. Normally on Wednesday mornings, we would talk to Melissa Baldauff at 6:30 with our weekly climate check. She is off this week with some family before the summer vacation ends. So we will have Melissa back next week. It's not like we don't have climate things to talk about, but again, we've already mentioned that hurricane that upgraded to a 4. I'm going to say it again because I had to blink twice when I looked at the phone this morning on my nightstand. It strengthened to a 4 just overnight because the waters in the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic there have warmed up that much for some reason. So I'm sure we'll talk about that with Melissa Baldauff next week on our climate check. But again, there are plenty of things that we can talk about today already. And not the least of them is the latest attempt by Republicans running the legislature to basically squander our surplus on a tax cut, try to jam something through that is geared toward the wealthy. Now, you'll recall when last we left the soap opera of how to waste a surplus, Republicans were saying, well, we should give it back in the form of tax cuts. And the tax cuts were skewed heavily to the top tax bracket. Governor Evers understandably vetoed that and said, get that out of here, try again. He's even called a special session for October to say, hey, or September rather, saying, come on back, try again. Let's get a tax cut plan written that is good for the middle class. Well, the Republicans came back yesterday with a series of press conferences around Wisconsin saying, okay, all right. We're not going to skew it toward the top tax bracket. We're going to skew it toward the second highest tax bracket. How about that? Let's do that. Is the Republican plan for a record surplus, one that could fix the shortfalls in our school funding system, one that could make and keep childcare affordable to families, one that could address the worker shortage, but apparently sending most of it back to one of the higher tax brackets in the state, they think is the one that's going to do the trick this time. Again, under the guise of, at all of these press conferences, there was a little placard there that says in big letters, returning your surplus. Because the overarching philosophy of Wisconsinite, or of conservatives, when it comes to tax cuts and surpluses, is it's your money and we should give it back to you because you can spend your money better than the government. To which I will tell you every single time, no, you can't, because I didn't see you filling a pothole today. I didn't see you fixing a leaky roof on a school today. I didn't see you doing anything that helped take the dirty wastewater that comes from my house and help clean it up before it goes into the Chippewa River. I didn't see you doing that either. That's what our tax dollars are supposed to do. They're supposed to educate our children. They're supposed to protect our resources. They're supposed to make sure we can drink a clean glass of water. They're supposed to plow the snow off our roads. And yet when Republicans are smart enough, and they are definitely smart enough to go around the state and talk to local media, the local stations, local outlets just take it in, hook, line, and sinker, put up that big returning your surplus sign. They put it up there on TV or on the front page of the newspaper, and people look at that and say, yeah, they should return that surplus, because there's nobody there saying, wait a minute. And I'm going to toot my own horn for just a second here. From anchoring the news at Channel 13 in Eau Claire for all those years, and being a political junkie coming into it, and working all those years with nobody knowing my political leanings, and I was very proud of that, because I knew that as a journalist working in local media, if I got a press release from the local Republicans, I called up a local Democrat. And if I got a press release from the local Democrats, I called up a local Republican. And I'd say, what do you think about this? And the story would come back not as a modified version of a press release from one side, but would say, that so-and-so, let's take Eau Claire, for example. because I'm not far from here, if I were doing this right now. And there would be, Warren Petrick and Rob Summerfield and some of the others, up there. Of course, one of my first phone calls would be to Jody Emerson or to Jeff Smith, the same way it would be if Tony Evers came to town. And I would be ringing up one of the Republicans and going, okay, what do you make about this? Not to both sides it, because in that case, you're presenting this is their plan. But rather than simply make it a press release, you put in a little note that says, now, keep in mind that there are people that say this. There's a difference between a well-rounded story and balance for the sake of balance. And you need some experienced writers and reporters to get that done. But Republicans know better. They know if we just go around the state with our big sign, all people are going to talk about is Republicans want to cut your taxes and give your money back to you. Because they're not going to tell you all the ways that record surplus could have been used to make life better for the middle class. But what really got me was one of these sound bites from one of the Republicans. I think it was Trig Prunchinsky from the Trempealeau County area, who said, I believe it was, he was the one who said something along the lines of referencing Governor Evers and calling a special session. He says something along the lines of, and the governor being so one-sided, just calling us into session, without talking to us. He doesn't owe you that. He owes the people of Wisconsin the opportunity for you to come in and talk to him then during the special session and work out something. If you want a secret backroom deal with the governor before you're willing to get in your car and come down to Madison, well, that's a fine position for you. But I would expect my legislators to get their work done during the regular session. And if they don't get it done, to then heed the call to come back into regular session, debate things, and maybe pass something. Again, nobody says you have to pass anything, and you probably won't. But you could at least do the courtesy of debating it down there and talking about your ideas, and maybe you'll even work out a deal that will cut taxes for the middle class. But unfortunately, we have a tax code in Wisconsin that has been getting flatter and flatter over the years. And a flat tax, again, for all the attention that it gets in political circles, is the absolute worst thing. And what we're seeing this week provides the best illustration of it. Because the Republicans are saying, all right, well, we're going to cover the second highest tax bracket with a tax cut because that will cover people making as little as $36,800 a year. Well, yeah, but you know how high that tax bracket goes? The second highest tax bracket ends at $405,000 a year. That's an entire tax bracket. $36,000 to $405,000 a year. So yes, if you put most of your tax cut help there, you are going to be helping some people making low five-figure salaries, and you're going to be helping a whole lot of people making nearly $500,000 a year. This plan has been the greatest public relations pitch for not having flatter tax brackets, for not having flat taxes. If you want to help the middle class, and I'm not saying people making $400,000 are independently wealthy, but there's a big difference between getting by on life at $400,000 versus $37,000. Well, then the real tax reform they should be working on this weekend is splitting up those brackets and providing relief and actual work to the middle class families who are getting things done all across Wisconsin. More after this. You're Up North.
This is Mad Radio 92.7 WMDX.
ABC News, I'm Inez de la Cuetera. Idalia kicking up the surf in Tampa. The hurricane now a Category 4 storm with 130-mile-per-hour winds on collision course with Florida's Big Bend east of Tallahassee, where it's expected to make landfall. The Pentagon says more than 5,000 National Guard members are in place or are on their way to assist in Florida. Commissioner of Wakulla County, Ralph Thomas, with the team knocking on doors to evacuate coastal areas.
We've worked hard and we've prepared, and now all we can do is hope and pray and ride it out.
Catastrophic storm surge expected when Idalia moves inland. ABC's M. Wind is in Tampa, where
5,500 National Guardsmen are on alert, ready to assist more than 580 search and rescue personnel. An army of utility workers also on standby. 20,000 are at the ready.
The National Weather Service in Tallahassee called Idalia an unprecedented event since no major hurricanes on record have ever passed through the bay in the middle of Florida's Big Bend. This is ABC News.
Darcy Haber, I hear you have solar panels on your office building. Since when are real estate brokers so concerned about the environment?
Drew, you should know that at Solidarity Realty, we provide outstanding real estate service while adhering to our core progressive values. Environmental sustainability is a big part of that.
So you really walk your talk, huh?
Yeah, I even walk to work.
Come on, always?
Well, sometimes I bike, and if I have an appointment across town, I use my solar panels to charge my plug-in.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Check them out at solidarityrealty.com.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Why get one when you can get two during the buy one, get one lens offer at Ula Eyewear? Save up to 75% on your second set of lenses when you buy one now through August 31st. Have a favorite pair in need of new lenses? Buy one and re-lens your favorite. Stop by Ula Eyewear in the Hilldale Shopping Center and seize this offer before it's gone. See clearly, save clearly. At Ula Eyewear, Madison's premier eyewear shopping destination. Exclusions apply.
Unleash your inner brewmaster and create your own custom adult beverage with Wine and Hop Shop. Whether you're a seasoned pro or a beginner, they can guide you through the brewing process. Beer, wine, even kombucha. Log on to wineandhop.com or stop by 1919 Monroe Street in Madison.
Hey, Dom, how many palindromes can you name in 30 seconds?
Race car, mom, dad, reefer, kayak, level. Did I say mom already?
You're forgetting one really important one.
Zero res.
Not only is it the coolest palindrome ever, it's also our favorite.
Right, I remember. Why is that again?
They advertise with us.
Zero res, my favorite palindrome.
And carpet cleaner.
Get
the best carpet cleaning ever. Schedule your carpet cleaning online at zeroresmadison.com. Tell them the Devil's Advocate sent you.
AM radio provides always-on news, sports, talk, traffic, and weather reports. It also delivers vital emergency information when your community needs it most. A new bill in Congress would ensure AM radio stays in your car, because when cell and internet services are down, this free emergency service is critical. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to support the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Oh.
What's that? Okay, we got about 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, I think you said it best. It's sometimes tough to be reminded this wasn't always circus music.
Yeah, it was originally written as a military march, but nowadays, if we were, say, watching a movie or seeing an advancing army and we heard them marching to this, you wouldn't take them seriously.
No, and granted, now normally we'd play it as, with a calliope rather than a marching band, but I thought it was kind of interesting that when I was looking for circus music and this came up, and I thought, yeah, that's right. This was, what's it called? March of the Entry of the Gladiators. Entry of the Gladiators. It was supposed to be this very, I'm sure people 150 years ago would be blown away at how it gets used now, but It's one of those cases where if the shoe fits, because we're going to talk about the circus here next. The imaginary nomination that was taken up in the Wisconsin State Capitol yesterday, and it turned out we got way more than we bargained for. I'm not going to belittle you with all the details again, other than to say Republicans are trying to fire Megan Wolf, the very competent, very professional head of the Wisconsin Elections Commission, because they still need a scapegoat for 2020. But her nomination isn't officially before them. But they're acting as if it is so that they can try to fire her when they can't. So we knew that that was coming up yesterday in the Senate Elections Committee. What we weren't expecting then was that the clown car would pull up and out would come a parade of all of your favorite characters from 2020. Well, not everybody. I mean, the My Pillow guy wasn't there. Trump wasn't there. Jenna Ellis wasn't there. A lot of them, are under arrest and being prosecuted in Georgia for trying to rig the election that they continue to whine about. But there were some others. Some of the other greatest hits were there, not just, say your Jefferson Davis. That's his real name, Jefferson Davis. And some of the other, groups. There was Ron Hoyer. There's Peter Bernegger, a convicted felon, convicted of fraud, testifying again about I'm not exactly sure what. The only thing missing was space lasers, but his whole point wasn't that Megan Wolf shouldn't be renominated, but that she should be arrested. No, you were the one that was, convicted of a felony. And then there was the big dog in the center ring. In comes Michael Gableman, the disgraced former state Supreme Court justice who wasted about $2 million of your money with a dog and pony show. Does not begin to describe the bloviating, the bumbling, the buffoonery of an investigation, quote unquote, into the 2020 election, which found nothing. Still found nothing. And yet one of the people who was testifying yesterday before the Senate committee, it was Jefferson Davis, said that they have the evidence, but they can't share it publicly in this committee, that people can only see it privately, and they have to be willing to sign like a non-disclosure agreement before they'll see this secret evidence about the 2020 election. Are you kidding me?
Is this like the golden tablets from Joseph Smith for the Mormons or something? Because that's the way they keep treating their evidence, is that like, I promise it's here. You can't look at it though, but it's in there.
But just, you have to believe me. It's what's here. Yeah, it was amazing to see it. And I'll tell you what, I saw a flyer yesterday on social media, and I was not convinced at the time that it was real. It was about a rally that was being held in Cuba City sometime next month. And the rally has like at least 10 different fonts in it. It's got fireworks and American flags and starbursts. I mean, it looks like a graphic designer vomited on this thing. And it's got pictures of people. And I saw the first one, and it was this fellow named Jefferson Davis. Then there were a couple of others here. The names I can't really tell because the fonts are such that I can't really read the name. Anyway, it says, Southwest Wisconsin Patriots present Cuba City, Never Surrender, President Trump Unity Rally, and 2020 Election Denial Conference. It gives the date and the time. It says, eat, American flag. Get involved, American flag. Win guns. Win guns. That's what they're advertising at a time when some of our students are already facing school shootings and lockdown drills. $20 cash admission at the door, rain or shine. Admission includes one food plate, one non-alcoholic beverage, and training from the experts on how to properly deny the 2020 election with evidence. I am not kidding you. That's what it says there. It says in tiny print at the very bottom, let's paint the rally in MAGA. Trump and Make America Great Again attire encouraged. Special prize awarded by judges for best dressed Trump supporter embracing MAGA theme. And that's the poster, along with little things like win prizes, win money. And I honestly was not sure if this was real or if somebody was trying to punk Trump supporters to see who actually would show up for something like this with a poster like this. Well, then I got a little sidetracked trying to track it down, see if this was a real group and a real event. I got sidetracked watching this legislative hearing about the imaginary nomination of Megan Wolf to the Wisconsin Elections Commission. And somewhere along the way, AJ Byatt-Poore and one or two other folks must have confirmed it because they put up the poster as well. So yeah, it's a real thing. And the clown car that we saw in the Capitol yesterday, still making up stuff about the 2020 election, is planning a rally in a few weeks from now to, again, show unity behind Donald Trump at the time that he is facing multiple charges for trying to steal an election. So good luck to those folks. When I was talking about the GOP tax plan, the new one that was unveiled yesterday by legislative Republicans, it reminded me of a story that was in the news last week that I haven't shared yet. And the two stories actually go together. The Inflation Reduction Act has done a lot of things. We've already reported on all the ways that it's going to, reduce the deficit by saving on Medicare drug costs, make investments in green energy, things like that. One of the little known things is that the Inflation Reduction Act included a 1% tax on stock buybacks, which doesn't sound like much to most people. Again, you have to first learn about what a stock buyback is for it to really get you cheesed off. And I'm one of those people easily cheesed off when I hear about stock buybacks. Because when a company has cash, when a big company has lots and lots of cash, there are a lot of things they can do with it. They can send it back to all of their shareholders as dividends. They can make investments in their facilities. They can buy new equipment. They can do research and development for new products, new innovation. They could actually raise the wages of their workers with it. Or they could do nothing. They could hoard it. They could hang on to that extra cash for a rainy day, for a possible opportunity down the road. And what you used to not be able to do before the Ronald Reagan era, you used to not be able to buy back your own stock in order to inflate its value. But stock buybacks were made legal during the Reagan era, and they have just gone sky high. It's been a ridiculous level since then of corporate cash going right back into Wall Street rather than going as dividends or investment in the workers or anything like that. So the Inflation Reduction Act included a 1% tax on stock buybacks. Not much at all. And in fact, this news story last week indicates that the 1% tax has been in effect now and hasn't really reduced the level of stock buybacks. They're still happening out there, but the 1% tax has raised $3.5 billion from the biggest corporations in America. That's $3.5 billion that corporations weren't going to put into people, but now as tax money, the government can put into people instead of, again, plowing it into tax cuts for the very rich. That's $3.5 billion now that, again, can go to roads, go to natural resources, go to education, go to national defense. So clearly, the 1% tax on stock buybacks isn't something that is crippling corporate America. They're quite willing to go along with this. In fact, a Wall Street Journal report says, despite the new tax obligation, companies have largely shrugged it off. From April through June of this year, companies in the S&P 500 are expected to spend around $170 billion in stock buybacks. One senior analyst at S&P said it's an annoyance, a payment, but compared to earnings this quarter of $458 billion, the $1.6 billion paid in this 1% tax is not a lot. It's not. And yet, as we said in the last segment, Republican politicians want to give them more, want to give them more tax breaks. President Biden, meanwhile, has proposed quadrupling the rate, going from a 1% tax to a 4% tax to encourage long-term investments by companies instead of short-term rewarding of shareholders and executives. Senator Elizabeth Warren once said that stock buybacks are a sugar high for corporations. It boosts stock prices in the short run, but the real way to boost the value of a corporation is to invest in its future, and they are not doing that. Unfortunately, buying back stock will continue to inflate a company's share price. It'll boost its earnings per share. And by the way, earnings per share happens to be the metric that guides some very lucrative executive bonuses, according to Forbes. And so stock buybacks are going to stick around with us because, unfortunately, we probably can't put that toothpaste back in the tube and say, you know what, stock buybacks are actually a form of stock market manipulation. So let's go back to actually investing in dividends or in research or in wages. We're probably not going to be able to do that, at least not anytime soon. So one of the things you could do at least is to say, well, if you're going to do these stock buybacks, if you're going to put all this cash back into Wall Street, you're going to get taxed a little bit on it. So at least some of that cash can come back to your workers, come back to your customers, come back to the things that help make the conditions so that a corporation can grow and can in fact become healthy in an American economy. I mentioned the Inflation Reduction Act as well in terms of what it will do for Medicare drugs. And we talked to Joe Zepecki a couple of weeks back about this, and I just wanted to give you an update that yesterday the list was made official of the prescription drugs that are going to be subject to price negotiations. That's because for 30 years, is it 30? No, 20. For 20 years since Medicare Part D got started, when Republicans created it during the Bush administration, George W. Bush, it came with a ban on Medicare, on the federal government, negotiating for bulk pricing with pharmaceutical companies, which is ridiculous. It's been ridiculous for 20 years that you and I, the taxpayer, can't benefit from bulk price negotiations. Well, the Inflation Reduction Act, again, which received 0 Republican votes, finally lifted that ban. And so Medicare was going to unveil the first list of drugs that it will try to negotiate prices on behalf of consumers. And we heard from Congresswoman Gwen Moore last month about this, about how much money this is going to save not just the government when it purchases these drugs for Medicare, but how much it's going to save other seniors and other customers who have to pay out of pocket for these drugs, but also by the government paying less, by not being gouged by drug companies. It's going to reduce the deficit. So it fights inflation for consumers who need these medications, and it fights the deficit. This should have been a slam dunk for Republicans, but none voted for it. So the first list of drugs came out. They include Eliquis, Jardiance, Xarelto, Januvia, Farxiga, Entresto, Enbrel, Imbruvica, Stelara, and Flasp. And in each case, Medicare will now be reaching out to Bristol Myers Squibb and Johnson & Johnson and Merck and Novartis and saying, let's talk about these prices and let's get some bulk pricing finally. Some good news, again, more good news coming from the Inflation Reduction Act. All right, time to take a break. Melissa Kay is here from locally grown radio, WFHR, and we will have today's history lesson and music break right after this. You're up north. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning.
How are you?
Oh, busy. How are you?
Busy. Yesterday was just one of those days. It just got completely away from me, and I was already behind. I had a long enough to-do list already, and I was trying to work on a particular project, and I could not get it right. I was working on a video, and next thing I know, I've put so many hours into it, and now I'm even farther behind, and I get to the end of the day, and I'm just grouchy, and I'm just and Sherry comes home, and I'm like, it's not you. I'm not taking it out on you. I'm just, just one of those days where you think you're going to make progress that day, and you find you're a little further behind. So today's a new day.
Right. And we'll, either get caught up or further behind today.
Well,
I don't know if we'll get ahead.
Either way, I got you here to cheer me up, so
Yes.
that's always a good thing. It's always great to have you here. So I should get to my notes because I don't have those funky music things memorized. There we go. Okay. Where's my roadside zoos?
Oh, yes. I read a little bit about that this morning.
The roadside zoos?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Let's bring animal abuse back. Yay.
Yes! Yay!
Great idea.
Yep. Good job, guys.
Animal abuse, child labor.
Yeah.
What else we got?
Oh, I like that. Keep that in mind. Yeah.
Let's just go back to the 1910.
Yep.
Women in stays.
I was going to say,
That's
why
what
do
we
we
need.
why do we let
There we
women
go,
vote?
there we go.
Yep. All right. Here we go.
Monday.
That'd be John Phillips of the Mamas and the Papas. John Phillips was born in South Carolina on this day in 1935. He passed away in 2001, and it was after his passing that we learned, or at least we heard, what may have been some rather icky details of his life from one of his daughters. Other family members have denied it, but regardless, we're looking at John Phillips a little more askance than we were back in the day, born this day in 1935. And on this day in 1967, Thurgood Marshall was confirmed as the first black justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. We have so much more to touch on for today's history lesson and music break, but not till we bring in our friend Melissa Kay from locally grown radio WFHR. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. How are things in the middle of the state there?
Oh, we're plugging along.
In the navel, if Wisconsin were a body, I think you guys would be the belly button.
We're pretty close. I think Pittsville claims that honor.
Pittsville, nice.
Yes.
Okay, you think they'd be up near one of the pits, but sure, that works for them. All's going well in your world?
Yeah, we've got our Senator Patrick Teston's going to be on Midday Magazine today, and then on Friday we've got our representative. He is a Republican, but Representative Scott Krug.
Okay.
And we're talking with FRM Fridays as well.
Fantastic. Hey, it was on this day in 1967 that there was this band in England. The band's name was Earth. And the band changed its name when its lead singer announced on stage that the band had a brand new name. If I tell you the lead singer who made that impromptu announcement, his name was Ozzy Osbourne, do you know the band?
Kiss?
Nope, Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath.
Ooh,
There you go.
sorry.
Oh, Aaron got it. Yeah, their band name was Earth. And on this day in 1969, Ozzy said, "Nope, we're now Black Sabbath." Or he said, I don't do the best Ozzy Osbourne impression. I'm sorry. All right, we've played this one from Santana before for various reasons, but it was on this day also in 1969. Santana released their self-titled debut album, including this particular standout track. We played it when Carlos Santana came to the Milwaukee Brewers, and look, I'm always going to try to come up with ways to play this because this album was an instant classic. You can't resist it, can you?
Nope.
Nope. Birthdays today. Louis Black, the comedian, is 74 today. And you want to take a guess on actress Cameron Diaz? From There's Something About Mary and The Holiday and, oh gosh. all
She's
sorts of
probably
others.
got to be in her 50s at least. Let's say 56.
51. She just has not been in her 50s that long. She started
Okay.
way back when. What was it? The Mask with Jim Carrey. She was like completely unknown back then. But yeah, 51 years old today for her.
Wow.
Let's see. The Are you ready for a little disco, a little pre-disco?
Oh, always.
Okay, because the number one song in this day in 1975 was by Casey and the Sunshine Band. Now, how funny is it that some songs, like Evil Ways by Santana, that comes on and you're going to groove to it as if the song came out yesterday. And then other songs like Casey and the Sunshine Band's Get Down Tonight just are immediately like, yeah, that's a disco song, that's pigeonholed. You're not going to listen to the song all the way through, you know?
Yeah, but you're still going to groove to it while it's playing.
Yes, you are. Yep. Right up until the next song that we're going to play, and that's for another birthday today. Singer Bebe Rexha is 34, born in Brooklyn this day in 1989.
If it's meant to be, it'll be, it'll be. Baby, just let it be. If it's meant to be.
This was her with Florida Georgia Line in a song that was on the radio every 45 seconds or so. I think we can all agree. Yes, that
you can put me down as a Florida Georgia Line hater.
Oh, wow. Is it just because this song got played endlessly, or is there something else behind that?
This and some others.
Okay. So Bebe Rexha, happy birthday to you. We already mentioned this day in 1993 that Billy Joel was the first musical guest on David Letterman's first show after moving to CBS. And then now this last song, and let's just go ahead and play it. This is Rihanna, and this is Pon de Replay, which is Play It Again in your own Caribbean lingo. And I don't think this was the first song I heard from Rihanna. It might have been the second one. But it was on this day in 2005 that Rihanna released her first album, Music of the Sun. And here's what blew me away. How old was Rihanna on this day in 2005 when she released her first album? Any guess?
Nope.
17.
Oh, wow.
17, and she already had such a level of talent and, I mean, just owned any camera that she looked into. And, of course, was the Super Bowl entertainment not that long ago while pregnant, while on a floating platform 100 feet above the field.
Yeah.
Just a very fearless performer, and a lot of great hits from her. Should also note that it was on this day 2 years ago the last remaining American troops left Afghanistan, ending the U.S. involvement in the longest war of its history. Much still being said about that, both good and bad. But turning back to locally grown radio, so you've got the guest that you have coming up here. You've got Labor Day weekend itself, and you did the fair last weekend. I think we were talking about you getting ready to do the fair.
I didn't do it over the weekend, but during the week, yes, went out to the fair. It was hot. During the week, but it was great. We got to give out tons of new shirts, promote our new logos that were designed by, of course, our very own Rebecca Sullivan, because she's amazing. And promote the Name the Chicken contest coming soon to our WIRI country station.
I don't know if I remember this, a Name the Chicken contest.
Well, yep. So this is our old chicken logo. I don't know if you can see it, probably not real well.
Okay, all right. I'm looking through the camera
but you
here.
can see the chicken on there.
Right.
It's kind of a chicken/microphone. So we kept that with our new logo, and along with the retro vibe. And we got to name the chicken.
Okay.
Chicken doesn't have a name.
Chicken doesn't have an. How are you soliciting the name suggestions for this?
So we do our morning show on WIRI from 7 to 8, and we invite people to call in. You can also go to our Facebook page, WIRI 1055 FM, and put your votes in there.
Okay. And so are we tracking these? Are we going to pick a favorite? Or are we going to go with who gets the most votes, which I would not suggest, because that's how you end up with Bodie McBoatface or Chicken McChickenface or whatever. But is there a particular criteria here?
I don't know what the criteria is yet, unless Seth and James have come up with a plan. I
think Seth and James have probably got it down, like make me laugh. If it's a good one, if it feels like it fits. Well, I hope that goes well. I mean, now I'm gonna be looking. I'm gonna gaze at that chicken, and I'm gonna see if I can get inspired, and maybe give that chicken a name. All right, thank you so much, Melissa. Appreciate it. Over at Locally Grown Radio. Yeah, have a wonderful Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, you too.
All right. When we come back in our next hour, we'll talk to Julie Lassa from USDA Rural Development around Wisconsin. Some big projects happening in your hometowns. We'll be back. You're up north. There we go. Thank you, Melissa.
You're welcome. Good luck
right.
catching up today.
All right. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
19 Monroe Street in Madison.
Folks, use the bathroom. I'll be right back.
Cripescast is just the butter on my cheese. Cockroaches, not that bad. They call them palmetto bugs in South Carolina. Same thing you can call them up here.
Are they really
And
palmetto bugs? Yes.
Yeah, and they're a great source of protein. They're going to be the lobsters of the future.
They also got salmonella, and they can lay like 40 eggs at once.
Well, they gotta work out a few kinks there, okay? They gotta work out a few kinks. Cripescast every Saturday and Sunday at noon across Civic Media and on the Civic Media app.
It's easy to listen to your favorite local radio station anytime. Download the Civic Media app from the Apple or Google Play Store, then listen live or whenever you want from anywhere for free.
You're listening to Mad Radio, WMDX 1580 AM Columbus, W224EG Madison, and always streaming on the Civic
ABC
Media app.
News, I'm Inez de la Quatera. Coastal areas in Florida's northern west coast evacuated. More than 5,000 National Guard members in place. And this morning, the state bracing for a major hurricane. Idalia strengthening overnight to a Category 4 before weakening ever so slightly to a Category 3 storm, expected to make landfall in the next couple of hours. In Tampa, Grace Cruz says she's been
putting away all my patio furniture, bringing in anything out there that's loose and can fly away, getting the sandbags.
Laura Wilcoxon, an emergency management official in Pasco County, says they had a couple of hundred people in shelters following mandatory evacuations. The warning:
the force of water can also shift homes completely off their foundation across the street. The power of water is really, really strong.
The National Weather Service just issuing an extreme wind watch for parts of Florida's Big Bend. This is ABC News. Walmart may be looking to cut costs by cutting back on pharmacists across the country. Reuters says the company is asking some of its pharmacists to take pay cuts by reducing their hours. Walmart also reportedly looking to hire new pharmacists at lower salaries. The son of the South Carolina lawyer convicted of double murder, now speaking out. ABC's Lionel Moise has the story.
Buster Murdaugh is breaking his silence nearly 6 months after his father was convicted of murdering his mother, Maggie, and his brother, Paul.
Did you ever go there and say, maybe it's possible that he did this?
No, because I think that I hold a very unique perspective that nobody else in that courtroom ever held, and I know the love that I have witnessed.
The 29-year-old speaking with Fox News for a docuseries streaming on Fox Nation Thursday.
And Burger King facing a class action lawsuit over the Whopper. Customers claiming the burger shown on the menu boards looks a whole lot bigger than the one they actually get. Inez de la Quatera, ABC News.
If you're a motorist of the four-wheel variety, please watch out for those of us in Wisconsin who do their traveling on 2 wheels. Adjust your mirrors to reduce your blind spots. Allow motorcyclists a full lane width. Use your turn signal when merging or changing lanes. And allow more following distance between you and the motorcycle. Motorists and motorcyclists can work together to achieve 0 preventable deaths on Wisconsin roads. 0 in Wisconsin. Together we can save lives. Learn more at zeroinwisconsin.gov.
Sponsored by Wisconsin DOT.
The kids are heading back to class, but when the subject is school, we have to talk about the first kindergarten started in Wisconsin. Marguerite Schurz created what is known as America's first kindergarten in 1856, teaching a small class at her family's home in Watertown. It's about 50 miles west-northwest of Milwaukee. So can you guess, when did kindergarten become part of the state's public school system? The answer coming up. Schurz learned about kindergarten in Germany, where the idea was common. It wasn't in America, and her class grew so quickly, she had to move to a bigger space. Today, the building remains as a Watertown museum. So did you guess when kindergarten became part of the public school system in the state? It was 1898. But 42 years prior, the Schurz School started it all, making this a true slice of Wisconsin. I'm Terry Barr for the Civic Media Radio Network.
If I could be you.
And you could be me?
for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
To get inside.
Each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Think you'd like working with us at Civic Media? We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. If you have the right skills to join our team, let's talk. Civic Media is a proud equal opportunity employer committed to diversity and inclusion, along with the growth and development of all current and future employees. If you're interested or are part of an organization who wants to know more, go to our website, civicmedia.us, and click on the Careers tab.
I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear, call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
Learn more at SmokeyBear.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Sometimes I just cannot believe all the storms we've gone through here.
I can only hope that we'll be able to leave this house to you one day, baby. You're our legacy.
Planning for these disasters will make sure we're safe, and is the best way to protect that legacy.
Protect your legacy. Visit ready.gov/plan for the tools and tips you need to start your emergency preparedness plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way.
All across Wisconsin from Civic Media, this is Up North News Radio. Now, live from our Lake Wissota studio, here's the founding editor of Up North News, Pat Brightlow.
Where it's another beautiful day up north. Welcome to the second hour of Up North News Radio for this Wednesday, August 30th. I'm Pat Brightlow here on Lake Wissota on this National Beach Day and National Toasted Marshmallows Day. Toasted. We don't need to burn them. S'mores done right. Part of our mission at Up North News is to help overcome a certain level of cynicism about government. And look, it's always nice to have a healthy dose of skepticism about things. But it really appears that over the past couple of generations in government, we've taken it to the point where some people have fooled themselves into the notion that government doesn't do anything right. And that's simply not true. You know, the snow does get plowed from our roads. We do have clean water. We do have a lot of things that go right here. An air traffic control system that prevents mid-air collisions, and on it goes. A radio spectrum where you can hear local radio stations and not 6 stations at once competing for one another. And so those things need to be talked about every so often. And you know, yesterday we talked to Ben Murray about the things that have been happening in veterans health care and how the Biden administration is doing things that are taking better care of our veterans. Today, we're going to talk about rural development across Wisconsin. That's something that's done in part by the federal government through the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They have a rural development arm. Its state director is Julie Lassa, a former state senator who served with me in the legislature. And she's going to join us at the bottom of the hour to outline some of the recent hometown projects that USDA is helping to fund. They range from broadband to rural health care, clean water, job training, affordable housing, and more. So we'll have that rather positive discussion coming up a little bit later on. If you missed our last hour, we talked a bit about the new Republican legislators' tax proposal. We'll probably get more into it again later this half hour. But if you want to hear that full episode, All of our shows are available as a podcast later. You just have to go to civicmedia.us or stream us as a podcast. Go to Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your favorite shows. We also have a special edition of the Up North News daily newsletter. We still have the regular one that comes out at 5 a.m., but we put together a special edition. It came out late Monday, and it's more about back to school, and it has more of a policy and politics bent to it, a little bit of lighter information as well. But if you'd like to see it, and if you're not a current newsletter subscriber, just go to our website, upnorthnewswi.com, and you'll see the special edition of our newsletter. Has a link right there. Click on it, and you'll be able to see it, read it, give us a little bit of feedback, and tell us what you think about what you're seeing in terms of back to school. Who's looking out for our kids? Who's helping to make sure that we have a learning environment that is, safe and productive, uses our tax dollars wisely, and still creates a good future for all of us. Up here in Chippewa Falls, the strike at the Leinenkugel Brewery has come to an end, and that is a mostly good thing. It's worth noting that the 40 plus workers who were on the picket lines for 51 days, while they didn't get everything that they want, is certainly the impression that I'm getting, they did win, a better package that is going to benefit the younger workers there. A lot of the workers who were striking were in the later stages of their careers and knew that if you were going to get a better deal for future workers, they were the ones in a position to do it. Because as we all know, when you're a younger worker, you are perhaps less likely to stand up to a massive corporation. And let's not kid ourselves. That's what we're talking about here. The Leinenkugel Brewery here in Chippewa Falls, started by the Leinenkugel family. They're still here. They are still immensely wonderful people. But, some time back, they became a part of Miller, which then became a part of SAB, which then became Miller Coors, which is now Molson Coors, like the number 5 beer maker in the world. It is a massive corporation. And so these workers that were striking in Chippewa Falls were doing so to get treated better by people at a corporate headquarters who might even not be able to find Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin on a map. So to the extent that they got noticed and made things a little bit better for the younger workers who are still going to be brewing beer in Chippewa Falls, we salute you. I will again be able to pick up some summer shandy, and I will toast you with my next glass of that. So we just wanted to call attention to that strike coming to an end in Chippewa Falls. And so folks who may have been, as I was, boycotting any products made by Molson, Miller, and Coors, that strike has reached a settlement. Very happy to say. And then just one quick note about Hurricane Idalia, because obviously the national news is covering that, but it is something that if you have friends, acquaintances, family in Florida, do make sure they're taking this seriously. Obviously, the people near the Gulf Coast in the northern parts of Florida are, but wherever people are, and not just there, as this thing crosses over today into southern Georgia, it will still be a hurricane. It will still be a hurricane as it heads back out to sea over the Carolinas. 130 mile an hour winds, storm surges of anywhere from 6 to 16 feet, depending on the area. So I just hope people will take that seriously because we aren't going to be done. Hurricane season has a little bit longer to go. And with a changing climate making storms very intense that much more quickly, it's all the more reason not to joke around with this kind of stuff. We'll get our own forecast for a very hot Labor Day weekend coming up from Weatherology in just a bit, and then we'll have a little bit more to say about that proposed Republican income tax plan at the state level and how it's still just too much of a giveaway to the very wealthy rather than Wisconsin's middle class. You're Up North. We'll be back.
Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Weather in a Moment is brought to you by Chad's Design Build, building a better world one remodeled home at a time. Reach out today by going to chadsdesignbuild.com to learn more. Again, that's chadsdesignbuild.com.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Miss our conversations on air? Join the discussion on our social media channels. Find Civic Media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find social media for specific shows and hosts on our website. Go to civicmedia.us.
Don't let biased algorithms or degree screens or exclusive professional networks or stereotypes. Don't let anything keep you from discovering the half of the workforce who are stars. Workers skilled through alternative routes rather than...
Oh, you didn't have a song there, so I was about to play one of the more tame Black Sabbath songs. Is
Go
that
for
okay?
it. Yep. If you missed it, today's history lesson and music break noted that on this day in 1969, there was this band out of Birmingham, England called Earth, and their lead singer did not like the name, said it needed a new name. The lead singer was Ozzy Osbourne, and he said this name is now called Black Sabbath. 7 a.m. temps include 50 degrees up here on Lake Wissota, 57 in La Crosse. Hayward coming in at 41, Oshkosh at 50 degrees, 49 in Madison, Waukesha at 48. Again, it's going to get hot this weekend, but we're not there yet by any stretch. A little chilly this morning. Jennifer Vucic from Weatherology is going to tell us more about the forecast all across the state of Wisconsin. Jennifer, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, well, like you said, it's going to be a pretty decent week overall coming in, but we are looking at a very hot forecast coming up as well. So today we're looking at actually our coolest day for this particular day, or for this particular forecast. Sunny skies across the board, a little cooler overall as that cold front finally pushed through the area. Mid to low 70s for afternoon highs, slightly below average for this time of the year. The coolest spot actually dropping into the upper 60s around Milwaukee. A warm front begins to push through for the second half of the work week with sunny skies Thursday and Friday. Only slightly warmer on Thursday, mid 70s to right around about 80 degrees. Again, a little cooler around Lake Michigan. Then low to mid 80s for Friday, mostly upper 70s from Oshkosh down to Milwaukee. Then continuing to warm up for the Labor Day weekend ahead. Sunny skies both days, mid to low 90s expected for most on Saturday, upper 80s around Oshkosh, which is going to be the story for the holiday weekend. Oshkosh just slightly cooler overall. Sunday, high pressure system settles in, hot highs in the mid to upper 90s mostly. Then for the Labor Day holiday coming up on Monday, essentially the same expected. Sunny skies, highs in the mid to upper 90s.
Hey, we will take that. I got a note recently from the folks that put our boat and our dock in and out every year, and they say, well, it's time to pick a date for the boat and the dock to come out for the fall and winter. And I looked at your forecast, and I sent a note. Not yet. That's all I can tell you. At some point, it'll be time to bring in the boat and the dock. Definitely not anytime soon, it sounds, Jennifer.
Definitely not. No, definitely take advantage of it.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
You too.
All right, we've mentioned the temperatures around the area in the 40s and 50s right now, but again, going to get really hot before all is said and done. As always, you're welcome to join the show at 844-967-2789. Brewer starter Corbin Burns had a heck of a game last night, but it just wasn't enough as the Cubs beat the Brewers 1-0 at Wrigley Field last night, breaking the Brewers' 9-game winning streak. The wind was blowing in, so none of some very well-hit balls could get out from the Brewer bats. The finale is this afternoon, and then they will be home for a series against the Philadelphia Phillies. Catch the Brewers in the Fox Valley on Oshkosh Air Support and in the Richland Center area on News from the Center. All right, before we get to the main new proposal in the state capitol, which is a new Republican bill with tax cuts aimed toward the very wealthy, we need to first talk about another bill that also perfectly exemplifies where Republicans and conservatives come down on the subject of whether something is counted as regulations or as protections. And I think you already know what side of the street I come down on when it comes to that. A lot of the things that people say, we've got to cut those regulations, a lot of times they're there for a reason, because they protect somebody, a worker, a consumer, the environment, what have you. So I guess I shouldn't have been too surprised to hear about this bill that a Wisconsin Republican is sponsoring that would weaken the oversight of roadside zoos. Now, why a state legislator is worried about making it easier for roadside zoos to be less safe is far beyond me, but let's dive into it anyway. According to this story from the Associated Press, Wisconsin zoos could escape state oversight if the operation earns accreditation from a particular organization that animal rights advocates have blasted for having weak animal treatment standards. The way it stands right now in Wisconsin, zoos are exempt from state Department of Natural Resources license requirements if they get accreditation from something called the American Zoo and Aquarium Association, the AZA. But under the bill proposed by Senator Van Wanggaard and Representative Alex Dahlman, zoos would also be exempt from licensing requirements if they earn accreditation from the Zoological Association of America, the ZAA. Senator Wanggaard told the Senate committee yesterday that the reason for doing that is that the proposal would create, quote, parity and consistency for zoos. Wanggaard said, it simply doesn't make sense for the state to require different licenses because a zoo uses different accreditation. This is a common sense bill that will simplify state license requirements. And right there, in a nutshell, explains why some people should be trusted to serve in government and some people should not be allowed to pass a bill that regulates a roadside zoo, much less a tax cut that would be aimed toward the middle class of Wisconsin. When he says it simply doesn't make sense for the state to require different licenses because a zoo uses different accreditations, the simple response is, yes, it does. Yes, it does if there's two different accreditations. All right? If one zoo is accredited by standards by the American Zoo and Aquarium Association to live up to a higher, safer standard, and the other gets its license from Fred's Zoo Licensing Emporium and has different standards, then what Senator Wanggaard is saying about parity and consistency makes absolutely zero sense. And as groups have mentioned, the AZA standards, the current ones, are far superior to the ZAA, which has been trying to convince legislatures around the country to exempt its members from government oversight. Similar bills failed in Minnesota last year and Michigan in 2013. And according to Bethany Gingler, director of Roadside Zoo News, a website that posts news articles about animal abuse at roadside zoos, she told the committee the ZAA is a made-up accrediting organization for roadside zoos to dupe the unsuspecting public that the zoo they're visiting actually helps animals. The point is to remove DNR oversight. And I'm not going to get much deeper into the difference between all these and which, who's used in the Milwaukee County Zoo and Disney and all of these others. I think we've already explained the point here, is that you can either get licensed and be inspected and live up to the standards of one group that is responsible or Fred's Zoo Licensing Emporium. They are not the same thing. They should not be treated the same way. And it is unbelievable and yet unsurprising that a couple of Republicans would try to dupe the rest of Wisconsinites into thinking they are the same and putting forth a bill like this. But again, it shouldn't be a big surprise because, as we mentioned, the other big action they took yesterday was to release a new tax cut plan. At the same time, making it clear that they are not going to go along with Governor Evers' invitation to a special session. Specifically, they're not going to do anything new to make childcare more affordable. they're going to let the Child Care Counts program die, which is going to hurt parents all across Wisconsin and put more child care centers out of business. Instead, we get this proposal for a tax cut, which again is going to be vetoed by Governor Evers because the bulk of the support is going to go to people, married couples, earning between $36,000 a year and $405,000 a year. That is one single tax bracket in the state of Wisconsin. That is how far things have come toward flattening the tax code, is that somebody making $405,000 pays the same percentage of their income in tax as somebody making $36,000, which of course, hello math, takes up a substantially larger chunk of the income that they need to feed their family and to keep a roof over their head. But again, with one bracket that size, with Wisconsin Republicans saying that this is the bracket they want to fill in and that they're not going to go along with Governor Evers, it continues to make the case for maybe not having a gerrymandered set of legislative maps where lawmakers can again cater to only one part of their base. This new Republican plan has already been looked at, according to an article by Eric Gunn in the Wisconsin Examiner, has already been looked at by the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, and finds that nearly 2/3 of the income tax savings in the Republican proposal, nearly 2/3 of the income tax savings will go to the highest paid 20% of Wisconsin taxpayers with average incomes of over $304,000. Aidan Davis, State Policy Director for the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, says that, quote, a Wisconsin household in the top 1% of earners with an average income of $1.8 million a year will see an average tax cut of $3,561, while a Wisconsin household making $45,000 a year will see an average tax cut of $45, and it will lead to $3 billion in lost revenue that, again, could have gone to schools, to health care, to child care. And Davis says $3 billion in lost revenue over a 2-year biennium is a hefty price to pay for an untargeted tax cut that provides the largest average dollar tax cut to Wisconsin's richest residents. Mark from Prairie du Sac is on the line as well to talk about some of the headlines in the news today. Mark, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, I saw in terms of the tax cut, I also saw in there the current Republican plan to increase retirement age, where they're talking about getting rid of the tax on retirement income. But they've got in there, it doesn't start to kick in until 67, rather than the age that a lot of people are retiring in the state between 62 and 65. So there's another, just subtle Republican sign that they do not want you to retire. They want you to work until you're old and gray and can't enjoy your retirement anymore.
That is such an excellent point, and I did not bring that up. Thank you for adding that point. It goes right in line with what I was saying, I believe, yesterday about Nikki Haley saying that, well, we're not going to touch anybody now, but you young workers first coming in, we're going to raise the retirement age for you. And this is a party that says they want to get back in the good graces of young voters. And this is how you do it at the federal level from Nikki Haley and at the state level from legislative Republicans, again, saying, well, anything that we can do that keeps you in the workforce longer, that keeps you from retiring, is something that's going to work for us Republicans. I don't know how they expect to win over young voters without scare tactics or duplicity or what it is, because nothing I'm seeing here says let's get those young voters. Story just in that I'm just noticing from Lawrence Andrea from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Looks like Democrats Brad Pfaff and Deb McGrath will not seek to run against Derek Van Orden next year in the 3rd Congressional District. Right now, Rebecca Cook is the only announced Democrat to try to unseat Derek Van Orden, the freshman insurrection-adjacent Republican. We'll be back with Julie Lassa right after this. You're Up North. And there she is now. Hello, Julie.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am doing well, getting ready to take Taylor up to college tomorrow.
No.
I know. It is absolutely horrible.
Oh, wow. I mean, not that I'm not surprised. My grandson Mason turned 17 last week.
Oh my God, that's awful.
I
I'm
know.
so sorry.
I'm like we love our kids and our grandkids, but like, oh, I'm so sorry. This means you're old. Yes, it does. It does. It does. Love them to death. But yeah, that's exactly. I can't believe that. That's wild.
Yeah,
Look at us.
Maddie's a junior now in high school, and Lily just started 7th grade, or is going to be. So.
Oh. And
Yeah.
there's so much there's so much I miss about the legislature, but then I see some of those same characters that are still there, and I think, look at all that we've done, the past few years, and they just are doing the same thing. It's like Groundhog's Day for them. So it's a lot better being on the outside talking about them at this stage of life for me.
Well, it is, and the thing is that I think there's not really an appreciation of how much you have to talk about something to really break through.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And that's part of, being able to do this with Up North News is be able to take on a new generation of journalists who are just so used to one and done. Like, oh, we're going to do the story, never come back to it. And I'm the one saying, no. We're going to do repeated follow-ups because it's only when somebody gets sick of hearing something that they're first starting to pay attention to it. And I think that's part of why it's being well received is you bring that little piece that we learned about messaging and bring it into, the new things that we do.
Yeah, it is just really something because ever since, I've been out, it's like, they always talked about, yeah, you really have to talk about it. But yeah, you really have to talk about it.
Yeah, you really do. Yeah.
Yep. It is, it takes so much to break through.
Gosh, does it ever. Well, good. Well, looks like we have plenty of things to talk about just for starters here. I don't know if you heard, I just ended with some news. I just see that Brad Paff and Deb McGrath are not going to run against Derek Van Orden. So I'll probably be a nice guy and not start the segment, asking if you'd like to quit your job and run for this.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't hashtag
So
me.
I guess I won't, but I just want to make sure you heard the news anyway.
I heard that.
Oh.
It's not surprising because Brad would have to give up his seat.
Yeah. And I mean, that would just be borderline unforgivable, if he were to cost, Democrats that seat there. So, yeah, I was watching Wisconsin Eye yesterday, watching that Senate Elections Committee hearing and trying to record video snippets off of it. And it's just so funny that we're still relitigating 2020, but I guess everybody's got their thing, that they got to do. So like I said, I'm happy doing this thing. I can't wait to share more of what you guys are up to. And if there's like websites or whatever that people need to know, be sure you let me know and I'll try to get those up on screen too. Okay.
Yeah. There's one related to the Reedsburg announcement that we had in there. It is the bipartisan infrastructure law has an affordable connectivity program.
Okay.
And that helps people be able to afford.
Add getinternet.gov on there.
Gotcha.
Yes.
All right. We'll get going in 10 seconds here. Here we go. All right, let's talk about rural Wisconsin and the many ways that it can benefit from public servants who are doing right by the people who live and work and pay taxes there. And that happens in Wisconsin in part because of the rural development arm of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Sometime back, we talked with my old state Senate colleague, Julie Lassa, who is the state director now for the USDA Rural Development. And she joins us now to talk a bit more about what you've been up to lately. Julie, nice to see you. Good morning.
Hey, nice to see you too this morning, Pat.
Yeah,
It's been busy.
It has been, as we get all of the emails each time that there's something new that USDA Rural is working on, and we've amassed so many at this point. We thought we'd better get you back on just to summarize everything that's happening out there. But for folks that missed it, the last time that we talked, let's talk a bit about rural development at the USDA. What exactly it is, again, for people who just hear USDA and think, oh, you monitor corn prices or whatever the case may be. So tell us about that first from a general standpoint.
Yeah, so rural development is really exciting. It is one of a number of programs or departments within USDA. So as it stands right now, rural development has over 70 different programs that are available to individuals, businesses, as well as local governments in rural Wisconsin. So our programs range from assistance with purchasing single-family homes to multifamily home rental assistance programs. And then we also have business development, job creation programs within our rural business and cooperative services. And then our community facilities programs, which helps local governments be able to either replace fire trucks, police vehicles, renovate town halls or libraries, put up a new fire station. And then we also have our broadband and high-speed internet with our telecommunications arm. And then we have assistance for electric cooperatives as well. So our history at rural development stretches all the way back to FDR and the New Deal, where it brought out, electricity out to rural parts of the United States. And so that is really where rural development got its start. And it's really exciting to see how this small but mighty department within USDA has grown. Because like you said, most people think we either monitor corn prices or we inspect meat, and we do so much more than that. Which is great.
So much more. And it comes back to, as we often try to explain pull the curtain back and explain some behind the scenes in government. One of the things that gets talked about, especially you and I from our previous positions, is something called earmarks, and that there is substantial space out there where in a legislature or in Congress that politicians will earmark certain spending for certain projects. That's one way that tax dollars get out the door. But another way is through programs like all of these, which are much more community-based and depend less on the politics and more on the merits in all of these different communities. And I mean, you can almost read an atlas of Wisconsin communities based on the many that you've been serving by providing funds for all these various projects. One of the more recent ones is in the Reesburg area, right? That's the one for high-speed internet. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, it is exciting. The funding is going to Reedsburg Utility Commission, and it's a $28 million Reconnect loan, and it will be used to deploy a fiber to premise network benefiting nearly 10,000 people, over 300 businesses, nearly 700 farms, and 8 educational facilities, and that is in 5 counties of Richland, Dane, Iowa, Juneau, and Sauk counties. So it's really important because this is a high-speed internet investment. It's part of the 4th funding round for the Reconnect program. And what we know is that in today's day and age, high-speed internet is just like the electricity when the REA and the New Deal brought electricity out to rural areas. Through Reconnect and some of the other programs that our sister agencies have in the federal government, we're helping to deploy high-speed internet out to rural areas. And it is so needed in today's digital world where students are using the internet, especially during the pandemic, to participate in virtual learning. We have telemedicine that's taking place, so residents don't have to leave their home to attend a medical appointment. And then businesses. I mean, the world is open for opportunity when they have a solid high-speed internet connection. So they could be doing business just across the community or somewhere on the other side of the world. So it really is exciting, and it's part of the the Biden-Harris administration's Internet for All initiative, which is meant to. The goal is to connect everyone in America to high-speed internet by 2030. So it's really exciting.
And then along with connecting them, it's one thing to get the fiber optic laid in rural parts of America that some of these big companies have not gotten around to yet, might not ever get around to if it weren't for programs like these. It's one thing to get those all strung up. It's another thing to make sure that service is affordable. It's
Right.
if you can't afford the connection and you still have to go sit in a McDonald's parking lot to get Wi-Fi, to get your kids' homework done, that's another thing altogether. So it's not just the connectivity, but it's the affordability is something that we have to be mindful of as well.
Right. And as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, when it was passed and President Biden signed it into law, it included the Affordable Connectivity Program, which assists folks who need a little bit of help, but it offers a discount of up to $30 per month towards internet service to qualifying low-income households, and up to $75 a month for households qualifying on tribal lands. So we want to make sure that if we're making investments into high-speed internet, people are able to connect to it, just like you said, because it doesn't do them any good if the cable is being laid and they don't have the money to be able to afford that high-speed internet. So that was really an important piece of this investment by the administration.
I feel like we're doing a bit of a pop quiz for you here because, again, there's so many areas that you have to work in. And just as I'm looking through them, for example, there's, that USDA Rural Development is reviewing, rural housing programs. And, rural housing is something we've talked about the housing crisis overall, affordable housing crisis, but certainly in rural areas and in rural areas that are still attracting workers, it's so important to have affordable housing options out there. So that's yet another thing that rural development is reviewing.
Right. And so we have our single family housing guaranteed program. So it helps individuals be able to purchase a home. And I know the housing market is tight right now. So that is available to help. But we also have what we call our single family 502 and 504 programs. So our 502 program helps low to very low income households be able to afford and buy a home through very low interest home loans. And then our 504 program helps individuals who are low and very low income as well, who own a home, be able to do necessary repairs. So, say if it's someone who's over 65 years of age, they would like to stay in their home, but it needs some upgrades to make the home more livable, maybe like a walk-in shower or a ramp, something like that. They're able to be able to obtain a grant for that type of work. So, but if folks are interested in those programs, they should always go to our Wisconsin Rural Development website, and they can find out more, whether it's our single family homes multifamily homes if they're interested in one of our rental programs. So I think it's an important resource, and not enough people I think know that it's there. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about these type of programs with you.
What's that? What's the website they should be looking for?
So if they just type in USDA Rural Development Wisconsin, it'll pop up right to our page.
Oh,
so
okay.
They can sign up for also to receive the same type of notices you get when we press releases or program announcements, things like that. They can sign up right there.
Okay.
And it's just our public information officer does a great job in terms of really making sure it's up to date and providing the information that's necessary to access our programs.
And along with all of those other things, not just the sexy stuff, the broadband, fiber optic, and affordable housing, but as I made the case at the top of the show, said that the whole part of highlighting the things that government does right when you have public servants who care about efficient use of tax dollars is that clean water comes out of the tap, and that shall we call it, the dirty water that leaves your house gets treated before it gets into the Chippewa River or any place else. And if you are in the city of Osseo, you are one of the latest recipients of $7 million for a new wastewater treatment facility. And this, too, is part of what you call the Rural Partners Network, Northwestern Wisconsin Community Network.
Right.
Again, this is all just to say, yeah, wastewater too. This has got to get fixed. This has got to be stay on top of it, and that's part of what your department, your job entails as well.
Right, and it was great. We the Deputy Undersecretary for Rural Development, Farah Ahmad, joined us for a tour of the Osseo wastewater treatment facility. So we were able to look at kind of what the existing system looks like. It was built back in 1961, and then it was upgraded back in the mid 1980s and the early 2000s. But it has really exceeded its useful life. So the construction is currently underway with a completion estimated to be October of next year. But USDA Rural Development approved a loan for over $6 million for Osseo, as well as a grant of $850,000 through our water and waste disposal loans and grants program. And that investment makes that project and the construction work and be affordable for the residents of the city of Osseo, as well as the businesses there. And then we also provided we approved another loan for them for a little over $7.6 million. And then another grant of $750,000 through that same program, just to make sure that with the supply chain and some of the increasing prices that we've seen, that they were able to continue to move forward with that project and be able to do everything that they needed to do. So it's really exciting when we go into these communities like Osseo or Chautauqua. Last year, I visited with Chautauqua with Senator Baldwin. And the local officials were saying that the only reason why they were able to do the upgrade there because their wastewater treatment facility was flooding. It was beyond its useful life, was because of the funding assistance that they had received through rural development and the Biden-Harris administration.
You can't do it on your own. So don't tell me, I can spend my money better than the government unless you're treating your own wastewater. Somebody's got to be looking out for these things, and Julie Lassa and her team does that at Rural Development. Julie, so good to see you. Thank you very much. Can't wait to talk again soon.
Hey, sounds good. We didn't get through the whole list.
I know. So you'll be back. We did.
That sounds great.
Emergency
Thanks so much,
rural
Pat.
health care so much. Thanks, Julie. Todd Alba's coming up next. You're Up North. All righty. There we go. I know. That was fun. Now we got to, I am so sad that I waited this long, and I will not make that mistake again.
Well, we are going to see a lot of things. So there was a REAP announcement that I think, well, it's probably coming out today. So
all right.
So there's REAP. But then there's going to be, it sounds like a lot of visits happening. So it's going to be a busy year in Wisconsin.
Well,
So
no doubt. Well, I'm usually homebound here, but if you're doing any travels in the
Okay.
Chippewa Falls vicinity, please let me know.
Hey, that sounds good because I'm sure we'll have Tegan and I have been planning to get out and do some visits before the weather turns.
Yep.
But July was just crazy with RPN and everything.
yeah.
So now we're getting back into the swing of things.
Sounds great. All right. You have a great day. I'll talk to you again soon.
Hey, thanks. You
All
too,
right.
Pat.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye now.
Do I need to call Todd again?
I was going to say, see, I did send him the link, so he does have it. I sent it on Monday, so he might have missed it. All right, before we wrap things up for a Wednesday, I do want to make sure that I note again, in case you missed it earlier, the story that's breaking from Lawrence Andrea from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel out of the 3rd Congressional District in western Wisconsin, that 2 of the candidates who ran in the primary last year, Deb McGrath and State Senator Brad Pfaff, now say they will not be running in 2024 to challenge Derek Van Orden in the 3rd Congressional District. Now, in both cases, Deb McGrath cited some personal reasons. And of course, for Brad Pfaff, he would have to give up his state Senate seat this time around. And that would give Republicans a shot on building on their majority in the state Senate. So Pfaff is doing certainly the right thing by his community, even though it always is not fun when you have a potential opportunity to run for higher office, but you have to let that pass this time around. And then that leaves Rebecca Cook, near as I can tell, as the only declared candidate so far looking to run against Derek Van Orden. Rebecca Cook also ran in that 4-way primary last year for Democrats. Mark Newman was the other candidate. Now, there are some other folks who say they have been considering a run. There's Stevens Point State Assembly Representative Katrina Shanklin, who said she's being encouraged by many folks and is considering it. Former La Crosse County Board Chair Tara Johnson said she is weighing a bid as well. Missy Hughes, the CEO of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation and a member of Governor Evers' cabinet, said she has not ruled out a bid for the seat, though, according to Lawrence's news article here, multiple Democrats in the state have expressed doubts over whether she will run, and that she did not respond to a recent text message that was seeking comment on that. Now, does this mean that people are looking at Derek Van Orden, the freshman Republican, as some kind of, formidable foe? No, the answer is absolutely not. If nothing at this point, the appearance is that the decks are being cleared so that instead of a divisive primary, people coalesce around a candidate. Now, is that going to happen with Rebecca Cook? Does it mean that Katrina Shanklin, Tara Johnson, Missy Hughes, others won't get in? It's way too early to say. But right now, Democrats have been talking amongst themselves. They know how badly Democrats at the national level lost this seat. They assumed that Derek Van Orden was in a stronger position than we all knew that he actually was. He was not in that strong of a position. He has proven to not be up for the job based on his conduct and based on his positions. And so if Democrats do coalesce around a single candidate either before or after the primary, and if national Democratic level groups and leaders don't write off Western Wisconsin too early again, it is quite likely that that seat comes back into Democratic hands, one that Ron Kind held for so many years. Here with a differing opinion to tell me how wrong I am on everything that I talk about, we bring in Todd Alba of the conveniently named Todd Alba Show. Mr. Alba, how are you? Well, first off, you're on the phone, so maybe I may start by saying, how are you? Are you okay? Are you locked in a closet any place or anything? With you the honor of not being able to see your smiling face?
I'm fine. The voice is a little rough. I've been this darn sinus stuff is going back, and B, as Mr. Zommers will tell you, as I talked ad nauseum for 45 minutes yesterday on our show, I am battling the Spectrum people, the Spectrum Charter cable company. Last night I had my 5th technician in 2 months to my apartment.
Any luck?
And I'll spare you all the details, but he ran into, by happenstance, by the grace of God, by the universe, he ran into one of my neighbors, apparently, who was having the exact same problem. And after telling these people for 2 months that this is the case, finally last night they believed me. And so this morning I have their supervisor coming out. So it was a crazy night, and my alarm was not set properly. So my sincere apologies.
Well, do you know? I think you and your neighbor. I'm pretty sure I'm understanding what the problem is. You know, if you actually pay for those channels, you don't have to squint through the scrambled signal, and see exactly what you should be paying for. Is that the issue this time around?
I'm actually paying for what I owe up until my service went bad. Mm-hmm. And so, no, it's not that I'm behind on payments. It's just that they finally admitted that it was their fault. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood explain the concept of pay-per-view, that you actually pay to get a view of this thing. So I saw a social media post for the show, and I saw that it mentioned, I think, Spectrum horror stories. And so I knew there was going to be something here for you to tell me about. And I'm going to be one of those that says, look, it was Spectrum. Before that, it was Charter. Before that, it was Time Warner. Before that, I can't even remember what the name was, but I've been with the same cable company for 28 years. And it seems like about once a year, something goes wrong, I don't know if it's the way the house is wired or whatever. And a technician comes in, and in less than 5 minutes, usually, it's working again. So, thank goodness for people that are actually trained in this kind of thing. So I hope that that's all it takes, is maybe one more 5-minute visit, and we get you back fully connected the way you should be. I'm hoping. You remember the old show Grizzly Adams, Pat?
Oh,
yes. Watch that show.
Yes.
Remember Denver Pyle played, what was the old curmudgeon? He also played Uncle Jesse on Dukes of Hazzard.
Right.
What was that character's name? But anyway, he had so many mules that he called his mule number 7. So that's why I'm down to calling my Spectrum people just their number. So this morning will be number 6. I'll have Spectrum guy number 6, and I'm hoping that number 6 will put me over the top.
Jeepers.
I'm hoping that will be the trick.
Oh, my goodness. I completely forgot about the Life and Times of Grizzly Adams, and that was a great show, but it only was like 1977 to 78 or something like that. It's just one of those
way too soon, in my opinion.
Yes, yeah, because we all need experience living as a mountain man somewhere in the coulees, in the bluffs.
That's it, Mountain Man Jack. That was the character's name.
Mountain Man Jack. All right. Well, again, enjoy your time. Enjoy your time being Amish for a little bit longer, and we'll look forward to your show coming up this afternoon at 1:00 if you're willing.
I'm very willing, and thank you for understanding. I will be much more punctual to class next week.
Not a worry, Mr. Alba. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Or at least as best a day as you can. We appreciate that. Thanks, Todd. Hey, that's going to do it for us. Again, sign up for our newsletter at UpNorthNewsWI.com. Follow us at UpNorthNewsWI on all the social medias. And you can catch me at Pat Quitlow Up North on Facebook or Pat Quitlow on Twitter and all those other fun channels. Hey, we'll do this again on a Thursday morning starting at 6 a.m. where it's another beautiful day up north. See you tomorrow.